In the world of cryptocurrency, there exists a movement known as DeFi, short for decentralized finance. The idea of DeFi is similar in concept to the overall cryptocurrency marketing, to remove the control of the current institutions of power and place it in the hands of the people. Which, on surface level, might sound like a cool idea, right? But realistically, to most of us, it's going to sound like a who cares problem. I mean, on average, most of us have so many other issues going on in life, we're just unlikely to think about the issues with centralized financial systems like banks and what tangible benefits it could have to replace them. DeFi sounds great with an elevator pitch. Remove the third parties along with most of the fees associated, give you control over your own money with robust features that are quickly growing with the needs of those features, and transparency of the protocols by which your money interacts with. However, the main things that matter to most of us watching this video are what you'll be giving up with the current DeFi ecosystem. I won't pretend that banks are infallible, and I can recognize that the system is by no means perfect, while also being fully aware this isn't my area of expertise. But what I do know, as an average person that doesn't dedicate much time thinking about banking, I've never once opened my bank knowing I had money in there to cover my bills and seen it was instead empty. Never have I opened Twitter and saw that a North Korean hacker cell had stolen the entire treasury and I was shit out of luck. That, however, is a weekly occurrence for people who believe they are on the cutting edge of the new wave of finance. I think I speak for most of us when I say that while the system could be improved and there are blatant problems with what we have, it's better than this proposed alternative, at least for now. We could go through dozens, maybe hundreds of examples of decentralized finance protocols losing everybody's money. Like I said, it's almost a weekly occurrence. We have hacks that range from a few $1 million to hundreds of millions of dollars, and today we're going to be looking at an example that just happened, as well as talk about why this will only get drastically worse before it gets any better, if it ever does. There's an ethos that's always interested me within the crypto world. You likely see it under the Twitter thread of any hack, any exploit or otherwise loss of funds. It is code is law. So as an example, if a decentralized protocol controls $1 billion and is then exploited to send the $1 billion to another person, that person is then entitled to that money as the code says so. Of course, legal entities and regulators don't see this as being the case, but there isn't always a lot that they can do about it. Very recently on my channel, I covered the Axie Infinity hack, the Ronin bridge exploit. There will be a link in the video description for the full story, but the cliff notes are as follows. Axie is a big play-to-earn blockchain game using cryptocurrency and NFTs. They allowed users to hand them cryptocurrency in exchange for store credit to spend in their game while holding real crypto in their protocol. The security system in place was decentralization, and it was essentially that no entity could validate transactions without majority agreement. In this case, they had 9 validator nodes, and they as an entity only controlled 4, with the other 5 being split amongst other individual entities. The exploiter gained access to their 4 nodes, and with a piece of errant code on the 5th that was previously used to assist them in clearing a backlog of transactions, they used this 5 out of 9 majority to transfer themselves $625 million worth of cryptocurrency, thus wiping out every single penny that users had invested in Axie Infinity's protocol and of course entrusted in their care. In that video, I speculated about the money and how the exploiter would manage to escape authorities and launder such a large sum of money. I talked about how in the past, high-profile hacks would sometimes be returned or ransomed as they knew it was too hot to move the funds, it would be too difficult. However, in this case, the money is unlikely to ever be recovered and is constantly being fed into the money laundering decentralized app known as Tornado.cash. The reason the hacker is not worried about the authorities and doesn't intend to return any of the money is that according to new information from the US federal government, the people responsible are called Lazarus Group, aka Hidden Cobra, aka Whois Hacking Team, aka 414 Liaison Office, aka the North Korean state-sponsored hacking organization that are responsible for other high-profile cybercrimes. This information is giving me a totally different perspective on the massive inherent flaws that are apparent in the blockchain space, and in particular decentralized finance. You are trusting a stranger to write code that will be used by potentially millions of people, with billions of dollars volume passing through, and there are state-sponsored teams of professional hackers just poring over these lines of code, looking for vulnerabilities. You're trusting them in an unregulated market where the government is not going to bail you out. They don't care about you. They don't care about this protocol. There are no hard checks, there are no hard balances, and there is no recourse. You gave that up in the name of decentralized finance, in the name of decentralization. If this were to happen to a bank, maybe the government would bail the bank out. Maybe you would get your money back. However, nobody controls this, nobody's coming to your rescue, you lose, and the hackers win. On April 17th, 2022, Beanstalk Farm's stablecoin project lost $182 million to an exploit. Although the exploiter only actually got away with $76 million, so not as bad, right? At this point, the comical names and terms for these projects can't be avoided or overlooked. There were users on Twitter claiming they lost $150,000, $250,000, and when you say the full sentence, it just doesn't seem real. Imagine having this conversation. Honey, I lost it all. Our life savings. I put it in the Beanstalk farm, and it's gone. I won't go super into depth on how exactly this happened and the technical details of how they performed this exploit, because it's a whole video to explain, but essentially they used a common method whereby they took out flash loans of large sums of cryptocurrency to buy the underlying governance token until they had majority governance, and approved malicious proposals to transfer themselves the entire vault of currency. The code that the Beanstalk team used was the failure point, and if it hadn't have been this, which as I said is quite a common exploit that people use, it would likely have been some other vulnerability. Such is the life of smart contracts and trusting that the code is sound. The exploiter of course immediately begun transferring all 24,830 ETH to Tornado.cash and will now undoubtedly be waiting to drain it out clean on the other side. Who's responsible? Nobody knows. Could it be another state-sanctioned hacker group? It will be interesting to see if we ever find out. This is by no means a small sum of money, but when you look at it in the bigger picture, over the last 12 months of cryptocurrency history, this is a drop in the pool of similar stories. I find this whole industry, all of these stories, so interesting for the same reason that people would have you believe it is the future. You have transparency. You can search these contract addresses, you can follow through the hacks yourself, you can see them moving the pieces into place and executing their strategy. There is no end to this madness. Decentralization is the selling point of this technology in place of the more traditional centralized banking systems, and yet in 2021, over half of cryptocurrency crime was related to the decentralized finance space. The majority of this being exploits of poorly written code and general incompetence, with some good old healthy influencer promoted rug pulling thrown in there for good measure. We love some of those. This whole concept baffles me, because if you travel back in time just 10 years and explain this concept to someone, they'd look at you like you were crazy, and you probably are. Imagine somebody comes up to you on the street and says, hey man, I have this new bank called Beanstalk Farm, and if you give me your money, I will give you beans, and you can give these beans back to me, and I'll give you more beans over time the longer I hold on to them. Then you can totally sell these beans to other people for real money and make a profit. People would call you a scammer, or they would call you insane. What they wouldn't do is give you hundreds of millions of dollars. However, in 2022, this is a totally normal proposal that you will see time and time and time again. It doesn't end. These things keep getting bigger, the market keeps going up, and I don't see how this stops. With dedicated groups of skilled hackers and these incompetent developers that act as bankers, but with zero oversight, we have the perfect storm for an era of unprecedented financial fraud and losses for the general public. You will undoubtedly say, if you buy into these things, you deserve it, but that's a discussion for a whole different video. Until then, check out my Patreon if you want to support my content with some dollars each month, like the video, leave me a comment, and check out my channel. Go wild and subscribe if you enjoyed it or found it helpful, and I will see you next time. Peace.